One weapon design served from 1919 to the 1990s across more than 70 countries. While other revolutionary machine guns came and went, the Browning M1919 just kept firing. By the time production ended, 438,971 units had rolled off assembly lines, making it the most produced American machine gun in history. But here's what most people don't know. This wasn't supposed to be a revolutionary weapon at all. It was born from a simple engineering problem that everyone said was impossible to solve. Today, we're going to show you how American engineering took the complex, water-cooled nightmare of World War I and turned it into the most adaptable machine gun the world has ever seen. From the trenches of France to the jungles of Vietnam, from fighter planes to tank turrets, one basic design proved that sometimes the best innovation isn't about being flashy. It's about being absolutely reliable when everything else falls apart. Let's go back to where it all started. World War I had taught American engineers a brutal lesson about machine guns. The standard M1917 Browning was a monster. Effective, yes, but it required a water jacket to keep it cool, making it weigh over 40 kilograms when loaded. Moving one of these guns meant moving what was essentially a small artillery piece, complete with water supplies and cooling systems. By 1919, military planners were looking for ways to make their weapons more practical and cost-effective. The M1917 was expensive to manufacture and maintain, requiring specialized cooling systems and constant water supplies. They needed a simpler design that could serve multiple roles: infantry support, vehicle mounting, and aircraft use, without the complexity of water cooling. The challenge seemed impossible. How do you maintain the same devastating firepower while cutting the weight in half and eliminating the complex water cooling system? Most engineers said it couldn't be done. Air cooling meant the barrel would overheat and warp. Without water cooling, sustained fire would destroy the weapon. But John Browning had a different idea. Instead of trying to prevent heat buildup, he would design a system that could handle it. The weapon would be built to get hot, stay accurate, and keep firing. This wasn't just an engineering problem. It was an engineering revolution waiting to happen. What Browning created was a masterpiece of mechanical engineering disguised as a simple machine gun. The heart of the M1919 was its recoil operation system. Every time the gun fired, the recoil energy didn't just disappear, it powered the entire loading cycle. The bolt and barrel recoiled together, locked by a simple but brilliant mechanism, then separated at precisely the right moment to extract the spent case, advance the belt and chamber the next round. But the real genius was in the details. The feed mechanism could handle both cloth belts and the new disintegrating metal links. The barrel could be changed from the rear, not as fast as later designs, but fast enough to keep the gun in action. And unlike its water-cooled predecessor, every M1919 part was standardized and interchangeable. The weapon went through 6 major variants, each solving specific tactical problems: the A1 for tanks, the A2 for cavalry, the A4 for general infantry use, the A5 for vehicles with extended charging handles, the A6 that attempted to create a squad automatic weapon, and specialized variants for aircraft. Each version used the same basic operating system, just adapted for different roles. This wasn't just a machine gun, it was a platform. One basic design that could be configured for nearly any combat situation. American factories were soon producing these guns at a rate that shocked the world. At peak production, one M1919 rolled off the assembly line every 30 minutes. The tripod system turned it into something even more impressive. The M2 tripod mount allowed for precise direct fire, with elevation and traverse controls that could sweep predetermined areas. Gunners could set up overlapping fields of fire and coordinate with other weapons to create devastating defensive positions. When the M1919 hit the battlefield, it proved that American engineering had gotten it right. In the Pacific Theater, these guns were mounted on everything that moved: jeeps, half-tracks, landing craft, even PT boats. The air-cooled design that everyone said would overheat actually proved more reliable than water-cooled alternatives in tropical conditions where fresh water was scarce. Picture this: Iwo Jima, 1945. While Japanese positions had been built to withstand naval bombardment, American forces needed sustained suppressive fire to advance against these fortifications. M1919's position to create overlapping fields of fire could pin down Japanese defenders, allowing American infantry with explosives and flamethrowers to close with and destroy the positions. The guns that had been designed for mobility were now providing the sustained suppressive fire needed to support infantry assaults against fortified positions. In the European theatre, the M1919 became the backbone of American infantry firepower. Each company had a weapons platoon specifically built around these guns. They provided suppressive fire during advances, broke up counterattacks, and created the base of fire that allowed American infantry to use their preferred tactic of fire and maneuver. But perhaps most impressive was the aircraft variant. The ANM-2 weighed 2/3 as much as the infantry version, but could fire up to 1,500 rounds per minute. Fighter pilots loved it because it was reliable. In air combat, a jammed gun meant death. The feed mechanism had to lift its own loaded belt against 4G turns and still cycle perfectly. American engineering had created a machine gun that could function in conditions that would destroy other weapons. Tank crews preferred the M1919 over supposedly superior alternatives for one simple reason: it worked. The barrel could be changed from inside the turret, the mechanism was simple enough to clear jams in combat, and, most importantly, it fired when the trigger was pulled. Soviet tankers using Lend-Lease Shermans quickly learned to appreciate American engineering reliability. Even in the harsh conditions of the Eastern Front, where temperatures dropped to -40 degrees, the M1919 kept functioning. While German weapons seized up in the cold, American machine guns continued to cycle. The secret was in the tolerances, loose enough to function when fouled, tight enough to remain accurate. The true test of any weapon isn't how it performs in the hands of its creators, it's how it performs when everyone else tries to use it. By 1945, the M1919 was being manufactured under license in multiple countries and converted to different calibers for local conditions. This wasn't just adoption, it was validation. Israel converted thousands to 7.62 mm NATO and mounted them on everything from jeeps to main battle tanks. The guns that had helped win World War II were now defending a new nation. Swedish manufacturers produced their own versions, chambered in 6.5 by 55 mm and 8 by 63 mm, proving the design could handle different cartridges without losing reliability. The British adopted it as the primary aircraft armament for fighters like the Hurricane and Spitfire, converting it to Fire.303 British ammunition. Even with different cartridges and manufacturing standards, the basic Browning design proved adaptable. By war's end, the M1919 was being manufactured under license in multiple countries and had proven its adaptability across different manufacturing standards without losing reliability. When British pilots needed reliable firepower in air combat, they trusted American engineering. Countries that had dismissed American engineering capabilities during the 1930s were now adopting American weapons as their primary machine guns. But perhaps the most telling validation came from enemies who tried to copy it. The basic recoil operations system pioneered by Browning influenced machine gun design for decades. Countries that had dismissed American engineering capabilities during the 1930s were now trying to reverse engineer American weapons. This is what happens when engineering excellence meets manufacturing capability. The weapon that was supposed to be a stopgap solution became a 70-year standard. But the story doesn't end with World War II. Throughout its service life, the M1919 continued to evolve based on real combat experience. The A6 variant attempted to create a squad automatic weapon by adding a bipod, buttstock, and lighter barrel. While it was heavier than intended, it proved that the basic design could be adapted for roles never originally envisioned. Post-war modifications included solenoid triggers for remote firing, improved feed systems for vehicle mounting, and barrel modifications for different cartridges. The US Navy developed the Mark 21 Mod 0 conversion, updating World War II-era guns to fire 7.62 mm NATO ammunition. These weren't new weapons. They were 20-year-old guns updated with modern modifications. The key to this adaptability was the original design philosophy. Instead of trying to optimize for one specific role, Browning had created a platform that could be modified for different requirements. The basic operating system was so robust that it could handle different cartridges, firing rates, and mounting systems without fundamental changes. Even today you can find M1919 derived weapons in service around the world. The basic recoil operation system influences modern machine gun design. Countries are still using weapons that trace their lineage directly back to John Browning's 1919 design. 76 years of continuous service across the globe, more than 70 countries adopting the same basic design. A weapon that outlasted its intended replacements and influenced machine gun development for nearly a century. The M1919 proved that the best engineering isn't always the most complex engineering. Sometimes the most revolutionary approach is to make something that simply works every time under any conditions. While other nations focused on creating the most advanced weapons possible, American engineers created something better, a weapon that functioned when everything else failed. This is the legacy of American engineering, not the flashiest solution, but the one that works when lives depend on it. The M1919 didn't just arm America, it armed the free world. And that's a testament to engineering excellence that speaks louder than any specification sheet. If you want to hear more stories about the engineering marvels that shaped military history, hit that subscribe button. We're just getting started with the incredible innovations that came from American ingenuity under pressure.